in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burnin Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, howdy there, daylight burners. Happy Monday afternoon. And we're at the end, folks. We've done it. We've run the race. We fought the fight. And election day is tomorrow. And the last I saw, something like 77,000 million people have already voted, which I guess is, I don't know what exactly to think about that, but I'm one of those people that have already voted, and I honestly don't know how this shit's gonna go. I'm gonna make a prediction here. I'm gonna give you my electoral map, but that being said, I'm gonna preface all of it with I guess with the caveat that I was wrong in 2020. I didn't make a prediction in 2022, but my gut said that there was going to be a big Republican sweep, and that did not happen. So my predictions are worth roughly a pint of cold piss. So take that for what it's worth. And that being said, I guess before... Hold on. I got to do some reconfiguring of the microphone here. All right. I think everything's working now. Showing good. All right. I think I'm in a little better spot. We'll see. I get a little fidgety. So before I get into my predictions state by state, so I've got an electoral college map. It's map of the United States, and I'll fill it in accordingly. My general thoughts on this election, my gut feeling, which I said, has kind of been wrong. So I don't know how much stock I would place in it. But my thoughts is about this general election picture is there's about 30% of the country that loves Donald Trump. Well, I don't even know if it's 30%, but there's 30% of people that are just like, yeah, I'm rolling with Trump. And kind of vocal about it. And then of those, there's probably half. So we'll say 15% of the population that are just diehard no matter what, would probably be okay with Trump being a dictator for life. And there are those people out there, just the sure enough cult followers of Donald J. Trump. And I would put them about 15% of the population. There's also, on the other side, about 15% of the population that are not diehard Kamala Harris fans, but diehard resistance Trump people. So like the orange man bad, no matter what. We all know a few of those people. Same way we all know Orange Man Good people, are the, Trump Emperor God King type people. So inverse of that. Just Trump cures cancer. Somehow that cancer treatment is racist and disproportionately affects the minority community, and therefore Trump is Hitler. Those people are also about, I want to say, 15% of the population. And then there are like your kind of traditional conservative type people that are by and large on the Trump train, and I would put them about 35% of the population. So roughly 50% of the population. Let's say 30% of the population is traditional conservative or traditional Republican voters that are basically on board with the Trump bandwagon. Some of them, probably a pretty decent amount of them, are holding their nose, but there's also, I would say, probably a majority of them that are more than happy to pull the lever for Trump, which leaves about 5% of say the right of center people that are don't really fall into those categories, and I put myself in that category. Now, I did vote for Donald Trump. We'll get into that a little bit later on my particular reasonings, but I'm a conservative person. Is where I started as a Republican, even despite the fact that my dad was elected as a Democrat. I was never registered as a Democrat until I think it was in 2020 2020, early 2020, when there was the Democratic presidential primary going on. Donald Trump was essentially running unopposed, but there was 17 or so Democratic candidates on the stage, and I registered to caucus for Tulsi Gabbard. Actually missed the caucus, so it was a underwhelming stint as a Democrat there. I registered again to vote for RFK in the Democratic primary, knowing that Trump, even though there was a primary, Trump essentially ran unopposed. If we're being 100% honest, nobody outside of Trump had a legitimate shot of getting the Republican nomination. So, I ended up voting for Trump in the Nevada caucus, which wasn't really a caucus. And then the main competitor was not even on the caucus ballot. She was on the primary ballot, which is run by the state, but the caucus ballot, which is run by the Republican Party, the state Republican Party, she chose not to have her name on that, but on the primary ballot, it's a really confusing deal. But she actually got beat by none of the above or none of these candidates in the primary. So that was pretty funny. Anyways, I've done 2 stints as a Democrat, hoping to cast my vote for somebody that would make the Democrat challenger to Donald Trump less shitty. I won't say that any of them would be real. I like Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know if she'd have been a good president, but there's a decent chance I might have voted for her for president. I'm my wife has called me a misogynistic or a chauvinist at times, and I used to argue with her, and now, or protest anyways, and now I don't know, it might be kind of true, honestly. But I the way I look at the world that we live in, the countries that we really need to deal with and deal with carefully are more or less run by strong men type. characters. So whether it's the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia or Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping in China or Netanyahu in Israel, the Ayatollah or whoever his lackey is in Iran. Those are all strong men type that if I had to guess, and I think this would be a pretty solid guess, none of them particularly care about what a woman thinks in general, and we don't have to agree with that with their thoughts there. But I think it's a safe thing to say that having a woman play tough in front of a bunch of strongmen types may not play the best, and seems like you kind of need a man in that situation. So does that make me wrong? Does that make me a chauvinist pig? Probably so, but that's what I think. I think it's a reasonable, logical way to look at things, and you don't have to agree with me, and you don't have to find my opinions in line with yours whatsoever. But I think that is a realistic way to look at things. So that being said, I might have voted for Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know. Did really get a chance to. So she's now on the Trump side of things. Actually a registered Republican now. She was independent for a while. RFK is now on the Trump side of things. He's on the ballot still. I think he was on the ballot in Nevada, if I remember right. So regardless of all that, he was the guy that I was going to vote for in the Democratic primary, and he got pushed out, ran independent. So that left me with, I think Joe Biden was the only option on the ballot for the Democrats anyways. But I switched back to Republican, voted for Donald Trump, and then immediately switched back to independent or no party affiliation, which is, I feel kind of politically homeless at this point. My views are, for the most part, libertarian. But the Libertarian Party is a fucking disaster, to put it lightly. And I have no good reason to affiliate with the party. I've got some people that I know in there that I like a lot. Friends with the guy who's I think he's a communications director or something. Anyway, he's like their PR guy. Brian McWilliams from Lands of Liberty. Great guy. I like him a lot. And I wish him the best of whatever he gets done there at the Libertarian Party. I do. And I hopefully he turns it around, makes it somewhat appealing for me to maybe want to go back and throw my support behind there. But at the moment, they've got a gay communist who claims to like guns running for the libertarian nomination. I've not heard anything from them at all since he got the nomination. I've not seen a single one of his ads. I've not seen him active on social media. I'm mostly an Instagram guy at this point. I browse Twitter from time to time, Facebook, same way, but I'm mostly an Instagram guy, and I see a lot of political stuff on my feed, and I see a lot of libertarian stuff. I've not seen anything from Chase Oliver, the libertarian candidate. So that party is just it's a train wreck, and until proven otherwise, I'm just going to consider them a joke. With the party itself, certain people involved with it, not as much or not at all, but the overall gist of the party is they're a fucking joke. They've been on the precipice of being able to enact some real change in this two-party system that we have over this now the third election in a row where they could have had some sort of meaningful impact, and seems to be squandered once again. So they're like voting for the Brown or rooting for the Browns at this point. Or I mean, the Rockies, same way. Yeah, it just they're a hopeless cause. So yeah, I'm a independent voter at this point. I most of the time are going to vote Republican because they're marginally better than the Democrats, but I'm not a fan of either party. I actually kind of dislike them both. That being said, Donald Trump's a whole different cat in and of himself. He's uniquely Donald Trump. He's a Republican nominee. He essentially controls the Republican Party. But in the traditional sense of the term, Donald Trump is in no way a traditional Republican. And he's just he's a different cat. He's kind of a populist, kind of like I hate the Hitler comparisons that the Democrats have thrown at Donald Trump, because first of all, anti-Semitism, in the true correct definition of anti-Semitism, where you think that the Jewish people are an inferior being, such as Adolf Hitler did, that was kind of core to his ideology. And there is no way you can frame anything that Donald Trump has said or did to be in the same camp as the level of anti-Semitism that Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump's daughter converted to Judaism, which is it's kind of a significant part of international Jewry, as Adolf Hitler referred to the Jews. The Judaic religion is kind of central. I know there's the Jewish people are kind of strange in the fact that they're like the race and the religion are kind of they're not exactly the same, but they are. They're you have secular Jews, but their lineage goes back to this religion, so they're not really interchangeable, I would say, but you can't separate the two. They kind of go they go hand in hand. That's how it goes. And I didn't make the rules. I'm just pointing out what I see. So the fact that the Adolf Hitler wanted to get rid of all the Jews and Donald Trump's daughter converted to Judaism seems to be at a clash of it doesn't seem to compute in my head. So now, on the other hand, you could say that Donald Trump is like Hitler in the fact that he's a bit more dictatorial, and I would tend to agree with you on that. He comes from a business background where he is kind of the end all be all within the company. He calls all the shots, makes all the decisions, and while he might put it to a vote, he's essentially he's the guy. And I could see how he would want to rule with a kind of a dictatorial bent. That being said, we've already lived through 4 years of it, and for as much as they like to say that he was a dictator and abused power and blah 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 insurrection, he stepped down from power without a fight for the most part. I mean, there was the January 6th thing, which if you believe exactly how the traditional mainstream corporate media presented it, where Donald Trump incited a riot and sent his people down to steal the election, overthrow the will of the people, blah, 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 threat to democracy. Yeah, if you look at it through that lens, it was a very bad situation. I look at it as a very bad situation regardless. I think there was a handful of Trump supporters that got duped into doing some stupid shit. They were egged on by whether or not they were officially federal agents. I believe they were under the sway and influence, if not the direct payroll of federal agencies to provoke a riot that could be used to crack down on political opposition. And I think it's pretty undeniable that at least some of that is true. There was an undisclosed amount of FBI and federal agents at the at the Capitol on January 6th. There's been severe over prosecution of many of the defendants of that day. Some that are being prosecuted simply for the crime of doing journalism. So I don't buy the official narrative. I don't absolve Donald Trump of all guilt on that day. While he did say go peacefully and patriotically, he kind of sat on his hands and just let shit unfold as it did. So does he have any culpability? I think so. Legally, no. I think the law is pretty clear. You have to imminently be inciting to violence, and in his speech, he said, go peacefully and patriotically. So that phrase is pretty key. He never said to storm into the Capitol. He never said to break stuff. He never said to hang Mike Pence, even though there was a contingent of his supporters that were chanting that. Those words never came from Donald Trump's mouth. So legally, I don't think you can get him on anything there. Ethically and morally, yeah, I think he kind of got his people whipped up to a certain amount of anger, and I think he was playing with fire a little bit, and he got burned a little bit. That's my personal opinion. Some of you may agree with it. A lot of you probably don't, but that's how I see it. So I think it was a pretty disgraceful moment from pretty much every angle. I think the 2020 election had some major problems, and while I don't know if I'd say it was stolen from him, I don't know that I'd say it wasn't stolen from him. As far as the actual changing of votes or adding of votes, I don't know. I've not seen any clear evidence of that being the case, but with the whole mail-in ballot stuff, particularly where it became the new way to vote in 2020 because of the COVID shit, I don't know if there's any way to stop some sort of election fraud. I'm not a fan of the universal mail-in ballots. That being said, the Republican strategy shifted quite a bit from 2020, where they said go vote in person on election day. Don't do the mail-in. I don't know if they discouraged the early voting, but they definitely discouraged the mail-in ballots. That they've really flipped that on their head. They're not only saying, they're just saying vote however you can, however you want to, and if you gotta take other people's ballots to a drop box, have them fill it out, drop it off for them as long as that vote gets in. So they're kind of playing the Democratic strategy on that, which while I don't agree with mail-in ballots, I don't agree with the harvesting thing. That is the rules you're playing with, and if you don't use them to your advantage, you're a fool and you'll probably lose. And that seems to be one of the biggest cases that Trump lost 2020. I'll say he lost because Joe Biden is still president. Whether you say that's legitimate or not, it's a fact of life. That doddering old senile fool is president of the United States, and Donald Trump is not. So regardless of what I think about how the election was conducted, reality is before me, and Donald Trump is not currently president. So that's my thoughts on how 2020 ended up. Now, since then, I've never seen the legal system thrown at one single person in so many freaking ways that seem to be illegitimate in my life. Regardless of my personal thoughts of Donald Trump, which are very mixed. I love and hate the guy at the same time. What the Democrat administration has done to try to keep this guy out of the election, and the amount of lies that have been told against him, the Democrats cannot be trusted with power. I think that has become very, very, very evident. And among all, take the Donald Trump stuff out of it, which it's a large chunk of why I'm voting for Donald Trump is the political persecution. But look at the day-to-day life since Joe Biden has come into office. He came in the middle of the pandemic, which frankly should have been basically over by the time he came in, but he kept shit locked down for way longer than it needed to, try to force an experimental vaccine on people through a executive mandate, lost repeatedly in the courts over the COVID stuff. So it's not even a question at this point from Trump judges, Obama judges, liberal, conservative, doesn't matter. On all sides of the question, he repeatedly lost over his actions taken during COVID. Clear abuses of power. That seems to be completely overlooked. Donald Trump was terrible on COVID. His supporters will argue with me that he was tied up. Well, if there was a chance for Donald Trump to act like the dictator that the lefties said he was, he could have stopped all of that shit in its track, opened everything back up. He alone was responsible for the declaration of emergency, which I'm not saying should have happened or shouldn't have happened, but at the time, maybe it should have. But when you see the results of what happened because of that, where all these state governors became miniature dictators, every single one of them outside of like Kristi Noem, even Ron DeSantis for a little while, locked down. And then, the better ones opened up quickly. Kristi Noem never shut down. DeSantis opened up pretty quickly. Texas opened up relatively quickly. And then there were just half the country just didn't do the COVID thing. I was in part of that world where it wasn't that much of a thing. So neither side gets my vote on the COVID shit. I think there's a lot of unresolved bullshit still from that people are trying to just, step aside from. And I don't know who's going to hold him to task. I think somebody should be held to account, whether it's Fauci, whether it's these governors, whether it's, people at the CDC or the WHO or whoever. I think there's a lot of people that need to be taken to task. Whether it actually ever happens, I'm very skeptical about. So you have that. Then you have the inflation, which Donald Trump, for the better economy that he had, he's very much, I wouldn't, maybe not equally responsible, but very much had a large hand in this inflation crisis that we have, the shutting down of the economy and then the printing of the stimulus checks that you can say is not his fault, but he wrote his fucking name on the checks. He signed them, Donald J. Trump, with bold Sharpie signature, and made sure they were printed on all of the stimulus checks rather than just having it directly deposited into your account, which everything's kind of going towards now. No, he sent out physical checks with his fucking signature on it. So you can't say that he didn't play a hand in this this inflation because that directly caused a big chunk of this inflation. It was a $2.2 trillion spending bill that they just printed the money. We didn't have the money, so they just made it out of thin air. So what does that do? That makes all of your dollars worth less. Supply and demand, the more you have of something, the less it's worth. The less you have, the more it's worth because of scarcity. There's not as much. You flood the money supply with more money, it becomes less valuable as compared to something else that stays the same. It's an undeniable fact, and Donald Trump played his hand in that. That being said, Donald Trump also spent more money than in every other president before him. Joe Biden went ahead and spent way more than that. So, I mean, Donald Trump wasn't good, but he was objectively better than Joe Biden from a fiscal soundness, not even a fiscal conservative standpoint, but just from an actual, does it make sense? Like, do you spend roughly what you take in? No, we spend way more than what we take in. And that's been the same case for every president of my lifetime. And I think every president, maybe going back to FDR probably. I don't know when there was been a significant decrease in the federal budget. It's certainly not in my lifetime. Even when they had like the sequester cuts when in Obama's second term, they didn't actually cut spending with that. They just cut the rate of the increase. They capped it at like 2%. So it was still spending 2% more than the year before, but they called it a cut. It's insane how they work. So anyway, that being said, as bad as Donald Trump was, Joe Biden and thus Kamala Harris, because she's the vice president, did she have much power? No, but she was in charge of some stuff, and the stuff she was in charge of, she did a shitty job at, the border being the top of it. Yeah, so objectively, Donald Trump's better from my standpoint on fiscal soundness. He was still bad, but I've heard a comparison. It's like comparing flu to cancer. Like flu's not good, but if you have the choice, I'd rather have the flu than cancer. So yeah, that's kind of maybe cancer's not the best comparison for Joe Biden, but let's say Alzheimer's. I'd rather have the flu than Alzheimer's. Except, I don't know. Every day's a new day with Alzheimer's, I suppose. But then you have, on the censorship angle, once again, Donald Trump, my channel has been throttled so many different ways, and I hate complaining about it because it all seems kind of stupid, and I believe it is, but also it's kind of important. First Amendment, the freedom of expression is that was the first problem that our founders saw with the Constitution is like, hey, this doesn't guarantee that we can't throw somebody in jail for voicing opposition to the government. So that was the first thing that changed about the Constitution was the freedom of religion and the freedom of expression, freedom to assemble. Essentially, the freedom to believe what you want and the freedom to say what you want without fear of legal repercussions, political repercussions. So on that standpoint, my channel got throttled during the Trump administration. I don't blame Donald Trump personally for my channel getting wrecked. But I mean, Harry Truman was famous for having that sign on the Resolute desk in the Oval Office said the buck stops here because you're in charge, man, and it happened under your watch. So like the COVID stuff, this censorship large part of it hangs on Donald Trump's on Donald Trump's shoulders, because it was his administration that did a lot of this stuff, unbeknownst to him, I'm sure. And what he would have done had he known, I don't know. So I've got to lay blame at least partially on him, because there's no denying it was his administration. That being said, Joe Biden was fucking worse. They tried to implement a ministry of truth, labeled as like the Department of Misinformation or something like that. They have they've actively tried to and recommended people get banned from certain political or social media platforms, and they are currently prosecuting their political opponent, Donald Trump, and a lot of his followers, simply for being followers of Donald Trump for the most part. Steve Bannon just got out of prison for contempt of Congress. He refused to testify before Congress because he believed he was would be violating executive privilege. And it's the first time since I believe the Red Scare during the McCarthy era that somebody has been actually prosecuted for contempt of Congress. So it's like it was a pretty big deal. And so as bad as Donald Trump or his administration anyways was on censorship, Joe Biden was so much worse. And by extension, so was Kamala Harris, because she has yet to say any way that she's going to be, that her administration is going to be markedly different than Joe Biden. So, I mean, if you're not going to change anything, so I'm going to put you in the same camp. So she's way worse. On guns, once again, Donald Trump was not very good on guns. Kamala Harris is worse. She's been her and Joe Biden have been stymied pretty heavily on gun control through the courts. But they've not been hiding the fact that they want to ban weapons of war, as they call them. They'll start with the AR-15, and then eventually will be like England, where they're like, nobody needs a knife longer than 3 inches. We got to ban them. And like you just, guns are a God-given right. The right to protect yourself, self-defense, the right to fight back against a tyrannical government. That is a right that has been bestowed upon us all by our Creator, nature, God, however you want to view it. It's a God-given right in my view. And Donald Trump was not great. He banned bump stocks. He banned suppressors. He got a lot of backlash from it. And I think maybe he's come around to where he's just, I still don't think he likes guns very much. I was listening to him, I forget which podcast he was on, but they asked him about guns, and he had a typical like guys that haven't been around guns and aren't like weren't raised around them, don't particularly like guns. He had that type of reaction. That being said, I think he realizes where his bread's buttered, and the people that, especially the diehards that really like Trump, also really like guns. So we'll see how it goes. I think the courts have done a good job of reasserting the supremacy of the Second Amendment over the last couple of years. So I hope to see that continue. I think it will. The gun control debate is far from over, but I think it's looking pretty good if you're a believer in and the right to keep and bear arms, it's looking a lot more favorable for our side over the last several years. So once again, Donald Trump not particularly good, still better than Kamala Harris. The economy, the inflation deal is once again, Trump wasn't good. Biden Harris, way worse. The amount of taxes that they will have to raise to pay for all this spending shit that the left wing part of America wants is enormous. Whether it's the universal health care, which is a huge issue for the lefties. It's gonna we already spend more than every other country on earth on healthcare, and it's shitty. I can't imagine how shitty it'd be if you let the federal government run that shit. The Veterans Administration should be the primary focal point when people say they want universal healthcare. Just all right, you get the Veterans Administration treatment. For the that's the government option. There is the VA, and there's not one veteran that I know that has had a positive experience with the VA. So yeah, that they can talk all they want about making the billionaires pay their fair share, but they could confiscate like 100% of the wealth from all these billionaires that they bitch about constantly, and they could run the government for like 8 to 9 months, and then they'd be out of money. So where would they get the money from? Everybody else. Your taxes will go up. Under Kamala Harris, for sure. Under Donald Trump, who knows? He pushed through some tax cuts. Most of it went to corporations and wealthy, but we did see some tax cuts on my end too. So it wasn't just for the billionaires as the Democrats like to claim. The tariffs issue, I'm not opposed to tariffs. I'm not a diehard believer in them, but I'm not in favor of them if you don't get rid of an income tax as well, because if you slap the tariffs on and you still tax us, you're just taxing us again. So if you do tariffs coupled with income tax cuts, I'm far more in favor of that. Anything that anybody does that allows me to keep more of my money and allows my dollar to go further than it does today, I'm in favor of that. And as far as sound economic policies, Trump has a clear edge on that one. I wouldn't say he's got the best economic plan, but it's certainly better than whatever the fuck these crazy lefties are going to have in store for us. And then the issue of immigration. This is one of the main areas that lost the Libertarian Party lost me. There's a huge contingent of libertarians that are very much on board with this open border policy. I can't get on board with the open borders. I've heard all the arguments for it, and I've heard some compelling arguments when you have no welfare system and you have a free flow of immigration, that it could work. And some of the arguments have been compelling, but I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I think you got to know who's coming into the country, and I think you got to be able to stop it whenever you want to. We either have a border or we don't. And my view of libertarianism is it all boils down to property rights, and you can't let somebody invade your property and just be okay with it. So is this an army invading us? No, I don't think that's necessarily the case, but there's been a clear invasion of people that are legally not allowed to be here over the past 3 years. And Donald Trump is clearly better on that issue. And the sad part about all this, I'm not opposed to immigration. I think it's got to be done in the right way. I'm not a fan of this shipping migrants to other places. Like, I get the point they're trying to make, and I think maybe that point has to be made. But from a human level, I'm not a fan of using people as a pawn, because there's definitely some really bad, nasty characters that have come across the border. But I think by and large, most of the people coming up here are coming up here to find a better life, and there's got to be a better way to deal with all that. And but you can't just let them all come across. That's retarded. And it's the same way with like the voter ID stuff. There's not a legitimate argument to not require a valid ID to cast your vote. That's it's a stupid argument, and the only reason anybody that makes that argument is they're trying to cheat. So on all that stuff, Donald Trump's clearly better than Kamala Harris, and there's no other good option on the ballot. So part of me wanted to just sit it out completely, but also, what does that say about my my thoughts on the country? That I don't care, like, just because I don't like these two people, I'm just not going to cast my vote. I'm not going to do, and then I'll continue to bitch about how shitty things are. But I couldn't blame anybody if they sat it out. I would understand it. I didn't do that. I didn't feel like I could. I wasn't happy with voting for Donald Trump, but some people deserve to lose more than others. And I think the whole Democratic apparatus / older school Republican type apparatus, so that the uniparty, if you will, they so clearly deserve to lose that is why I voted for Donald Trump. So that being said, I don't really know how shit's going to turn out, but let's get into the electoral map, and we'll run through it real quick before we wrap up. So they've got this thing set where it's kind of pre-predicted. So these are how states are likely to go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 swing states that essentially what's gonna the entire election is gonna come down to. So of this map, I think I agree with pretty much all of it. So Maine and Nebraska are the only two states where it's not a winner take all, meaning that it is each state gets 2 electoral votes, 1 for each senator, and then they get 1 for every member of the House of Representatives that they have. So Nebraska, having 2 senators and 3 congressional districts, they get 5 total electoral votes. However, they go by the popular vote of each congressional district. So the popular vote of the state will decide how the Senate electors will go, and then the popular vote of each congressional district will allocate that. So there's one district at Omaha where it leans Democrat, and Biden won it in 2020, and it looks like Harris is probably going to win that district again. If you believe polls, which I don't, they've been wrong way too many times for me to believe them. But they've got that district in Nebraska leaning like 10 points towards Kamala. So I'm gonna leave this map. The New Hampshire could be a possible Trump win. If he does, it won't be by a whole lot. Actually, I might lean towards New Hampshire going Trump. There's a lot of momentum in that Northeast area towards Trump here lately. I mean, he had the Madison Square Garden event, which, if you listen to traditional media, was the newest iteration of a Nazi rally. Even though they had several Jewish people as featured speakers, Tony Hinchcliffe lit the world on fire because he called the island of Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage, and it didn't go over very well at the event. Tony Hinchcliffe, if you don't know who he is, he's a comedian, pretty edgy. He's very good at roasting people, and he just kind of did his thing. I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, he kind of bombed at that deal because it was a little too edgy. There's still a lot of stuffiness in the Republican Party, even with Trump being as brash as he is. A lot of the Trump people are still kind of stuffy old conservative types. So it didn't land real well at that deal, but the Democrats try to make as much of it as they could. I don't see that it changes much, but that being said, the Northeast is Trump's kind of been surging there lately. So New Hampshire, I don't know. It probably still goes Democrat, but there's a chance that New Hampshire could swing. But for right now, I'm gonna change it to slight edge Harris. Pennsylvania is the big one. I don't think Kamala can win the Electoral College without winning Pennsylvania. They're both in Pittsburgh today. I mean, the Harris campaign is essentially just camped out in Pennsylvania for the last week or so. I have no clue how that's going to go, but I was listening to my buddy John Odermatt over at Lions of Liberty. He lives in the Pittsburgh area. He's a Pennsylvania native, and he seems to think that Pennsylvania is going to go Trump. I'm gonna trust his assessment on that, and I'm going to say Trump too. Trump has made up a lot of ground with traditional union workers, not like teachers unions or like the public sector unions, but your traditional like Teamsters, dock workers, the traditional American labor movement type unions. I wouldn't say they're going for Trump, but the Teamsters declined to endorse a Democrat candidate for the first time in quite some time. And part of that reason was because their internal ballot had like 60% going Trump of the Teamsters, which is a huge union. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed Trump, and like he's seen a pretty good surge in union support. Pennsylvania is a huge union state, and yeah, I'm not real sold that Trump wins Pennsylvania, but That's what I'm going to go with. North Carolina, there's been a lot of talk about the Democrats doing well in North Carolina. I think I think that hurricane was an extremely bad look for the Biden-Harris administration. From what I understand, there was like biblical level devastation up there in those mountain towns, and the response has been almost exclusively private sector. The FEMA response has been severely lacking, and it's not been a good look up there. So I don't know how much that plays into effect, but I gotta think it's gotta have a pretty heavy effect. And the early vote numbers in North Carolina have been very strong for the Republicans. So I think North Carolina goes Trump. Georgia, same thing. I think it goes Trump. I don't know those states very well. My sister lives in North Carolina, but I've not spent a whole lot of time in the Southeast. But my gut tells me that it's still like Bible Belt conservative, no matter, like, I know they've had a huge influx in Georgia and North Carolina in particular from like New York and California. But it's still the old South. And I think Trump wins the day, both North Carolina, Georgia, particularly with their, I guess, revamped strategy, if you will, to do the early voting and mail-in voting. I think Trump takes care of business there. Michigan, I'm also going to give Trump. I think the Arab American, Muslim American issue that they have up there is too much for the Democrats to overcome. They can try to pad their numbers in like Detroit and with like the black population, but I don't see it. The Israel Gaza issue was a huge issue in Michigan. There was I think it was the Dearborn, Michigan. So that's the only majority Muslim city in the U.S. Like, they have the Muslim call to prayer over the loudspeakers throughout the city 5 times a day. The same type of stuff you'd hear in Saudi Arabia or Iraq or any of those Muslim countries in the Middle East. That's kind of how it is in Dearborn with the call to prayer, and a lot of the population there being Palestinian. They're obviously not happy with the Biden administration's handling of this Israel-Gaza issue. What makes them think Trump will be better for the Palestinians? I'm not sure. Trump is far more pro-Israel than Biden and Kamala. But I mean, if you look at the support militarily for Israel, I mean, Biden and Harris are pretty damn pro-Israel as well. So those Muslims are in a pretty tough spot as far as their electoral choices go. And I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of them sit out. There has been some movement towards Trump with the Arab Americans there. But I can't imagine it'd be a ton. I could be wrong on that, but I think there's a lot of them that aren't going to turn out for the Democrats. I think that bridge is pretty well burnt on the as far as the Arabs go with the Israel-Palestine conflict. So it'll be close for sure. Wisconsin, I think, goes Trump. they seem to be more of a Trump friendly population than Michigan. I know like Milwaukee's got a heavy black population, but there's been a lot of speculation and a lot of thoughts that the black men in particular are swinging towards Trump in pretty good numbers. I think that could be true, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But I think back with the union type deals, I think Trump's made up a lot of ground with union workers. Wisconsin, Michigan, both heavy union states, and with Trump promising to bring back manufacturing, the Midwest being a huge manufacturing hub, industrial hub. I think that that speaks well for Trump in that industrial Midwest area. So Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, what they call the blue wall states, and that's essentially because of union workers up in that part of the world. I think Trump has made up enough ground with them that that it's going to be enough to sway that both of those states his way. So I think I'm going to say he wins Wisconsin and Michigan. I'm not at all sold on that decision, but that's what I think. So it comes down to Arizona and Nevada. Right now we've got, I've got Trump already ahead before we even get to Arizona and Nevada. I've got Trump winning with 295 to 226 on the Democrats. I'm looking at a Republican sweep of the swing states. And this is me being optimistic and kind of going with my gut. But like I said before, I've been wrong the last couple of elections. So take that with as you will. Arizona, I think, is going to go Trump. It's not going to be a heavy Trump like Utah or Idaho or something like that. But I think it's going to be a pretty solid win. I think the Senate race will go Democrat there. Carrie Lake last I saw has been down quite a bit. Carrie Lake's kind of a crazy person too. But that's a separate issue. There's been a lot of Californians that moved into Arizona. They're kind of a mirror image of Nevada here, where it all comes down in Arizona. It comes down to Maricopa County, which is Phoenix, and in Nevada, I'm gonna go the same way. I think it's gonna go pretty handily to Trump, but it all hinges on Phoenix and Las Vegas. Reno will have some impact as well in Nevada, but I think Reno is a smaller population by far than Vegas. So while it is the only other kind of major metro area in Nevada, it's a huge county. So Washoe County is like this entire chunk of the state. And but there's not many people that live outside of the Reno Sparks area. So I won't be surprised if the Reno area goes blue. But I think it's gonna go Trump. It'll be more likely to go for Trump than Clark County, which is Las Vegas, will. But as far as that goes, I have no fucking clue how Vegas is gonna play out. The rest of Nevada's going Trump. I'm pretty sure Washoe County, Reno will go Trump. That'll be the closest, but everywhere else outside of Reno and Las Vegas is going to be 60-70 like Nye County out here. I think or White Pine County, I think was over 90% for Trump. Granted, very small population outside of the Vegas and Reno areas, but heavy Trump country in rural Nevada, but that makes up about a third of the population. I think, well, probably less than that. Probably about a quarter of the population lives outside of Vegas and Reno. So it's all going to come down to Vegas. The Democrats have a very, very competent, pretty formidable, party politics, party apparatus down in the Vegas area. A lot of union workers down there with the with the casinos, so like the hospitality workers unions. And I don't know. I would think they'd still probably lean Democrat, but Vegas got hit pretty damn hard with the pandemic, and we kicked out the Democratic governor in 2022. Picked up some seats in the legislature. It's still, I think it's still a super majority Democrat. Maybe it's not a super majority anymore, but it's definitely a majority in both houses. So I won't be surprised to see the Republicans pick up a seat or two in the state legislature. I'm optimistic that the Republican candidate for Senate will win. If it's any indicator that of anything, Jackie Rosen, who is the incumbent senator up for re-election, has been sending campaign emails nonstop. And I'm gonna check my email real quick to see. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new campaign fundraising emails from the Democrats. 2 in particular from Jackie Rosen. She said, "This isn't the update I wanted to share today. New polling shows I've plummeted an alarming 7 points since September. This means my Trump-obsessed anti-abortion opponent has all of the momentum with one more day to go before Election Day, and we have hardly any time left to turn this around. Still asking for money. I don't know what they're going to do with any money I could give them if I wanted to on the day before Election Day to make a difference, but they're still trying, squeezing every last little penny they can get out of everywhere. So if that's any indication, I think Sam Brown, who's the Republican candidate, is in pretty good, sitting pretty good. I say this with the huge caveat that I don't have a clue how Vegas is sitting right now. But in my gut, I think Nevada goes for Trump, and I think it's going to be, not particularly close. I don't. Nothing like it was last time around. We won't know. It could take 6 months to get the vote in. That's going to be the craziest part. Is if it's not a landslide one way or the other, shit's going to get weird, like real weird. I think so. I'm hoping this map that I've put out. So I've got a clean sweep of the swing states going for Trump. Final tally 312 for the Republican, or for Trump, 226 for Kamala. I hope I'm right on this, but I don't think Kamala's a good candidate. Policy positions aside, like I don't think she knows what she believes policy wise. I think she's in it for the power. She's a classic fail upward type of person where she was, and she's campaigning on, I was a prosecutor. I was the head prosecutor for the state of California. And I prosecuted transnational criminal organizations. And like, those transnational criminal organizations seem to be stronger than ever. And you put a whole lot of black dudes in prison for weed. And then when somebody asked if you ever smoked weed, you admitted to it and laughed about it. So like it's I don't know. She's a classic case of just failing upward. I know that she's got this long resume, but she's not been very good at any of it. And she was the most unpopular vice president ever. And then all of a sudden she became popular once Joe Biden dropped out or was forced out. Palace coup style. I don't know. She's really bad. She ran for president once, never received a vote. She was so bad, despite having all the media attention, all the money, the big money behind her. She didn't even make it to the first primary contest. She didn't make it to the Iowa caucus. She was out before then. And then she got placed as vice president because Joe Biden said, I'm going to have a woman of color as my VP. And it painted himself into a corner, and he picked this train wreck. She is a train wreck. But all that being said, her campaign seems to be like, her slogan should just be "But Trump 2024." Like, you changed your position on this and this and this. Well, Trump did this and blah blah blah. Trump was also he's also been campaigning. That was one of her. It was a legit response from her. Was somebody asked her, like, well, all this stuff that you say you want to change, like, you've been in office for 3.5 years. How come you haven't done it? And she's like, well, Donald Trump has been running for office for 3 years. Well, he didn't hold the keys to power. So she's awful. Nobody voted for her. Like, I don't think that can be pointed out enough, that literally nobody voted for her to be in that position. She just got shuffled in there after they realized they couldn't hide how brain dead Joe Biden is anymore. Like, that guy's still our president, by the way. He's he's been shunned from the campaigns as well because he just says stupid shit, which, I mean, that's been the thing. That's been Joe Biden's thing forever, even when he could still think coherently. His thing was saying stupid shit, but now he's saying stupid shit and he doesn't know where he's at. And he's a hindrance. But he's still president of the United States, and we are on. Oh yeah, I didn't even say my one of my main issues, voting issues, is the issue of war and peace. And there is no question that Donald Trump is better. He is the only campaign out, I guess, RFK, since he's technically still on the ballot in several states. Those two are actively trying to end this horrific war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. Like, I'm not saying that Russia should be the winner of this. I'm not saying that Ukraine should lose anything. I'm just saying there's upwards of 500,000 people dead in 2 years' time and no end in sight. And we seem to be getting closer and closer to being directly involved in a hot war with Russia, who has the largest nuclear arsenal on Earth and a real military. I'm not saying it's a real good military, but it's a real military, unlike the wars that we fought since Korea, essentially. Like, we haven't fought against like a real military. And Russia has that. I'm not saying we can't beat them. I'm not saying that anybody wins. I don't know if anybody wins in that situation. And I think the best case scenario is to avoid it altogether. We shouldn't have ever pushed Russia to invade, which is what we did when Kamala Harris went over there 3 days before they invaded and promised that Ukraine was going to become part of NATO, which has been one of the biggest red lines for Russia since the USSR collapsed. The Israel thing, I don't know how the fuck that's going to turn out. Not good for the Palestinians, most likely. Probably not good for the Lebanese. And on the trajectory it's on right now, not good for the Israelis either. They've got essentially the entire region pissed off at them. And they're getting pretty ballsy, and it increasingly looks like we're gonna get involved with in a war with Iran, which once again, not a real good army, but it's still a real military, and it's like we saw how invading Iraq worked. It didn't. Well, Iran's like 4 times the size of that, with a much bigger population and a much bigger military. And I'm not saying that we couldn't beat them, but I don't think we should go fight them. I think that's a dumb idea. And I don't have much faith in either of the two in keeping us out of a war with Iran. I tend to think that that Donald Trump has a little bit more leverage than Kamala Harris, but I'm not convinced that we don't end up in a war with Iran, regardless of who's president. I think if Kamala is elected, we are far more likely to end up in a war with Russia, like an actual war, and that's not good for anybody. So on that one particular issue, the issue of war and peace, again, I don't think either of them are good, but Kamala Harris is way worse, as evidenced by the fact that literal Bond villain type character Dick Cheney and his daughter Liz Cheney have endorsed Kamala Harris and are now campaigning on her behalf. 2 of the worst characters in American history. Dick Cheney, one of the most evil, corrupt, insidious figures in American history. The dude that shot his friend in the face on a hunting trip and had his friend apologize to him for it. Thinks you should vote for Kamala Harris because the dude that lied us into a war in Iraq so that the company that he was formerly in charge of, Halliburton, would make buku money while our boys fought and died for nothing really, all based on a lie. The guy that was behind that says Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. So take that how you will. But yeah, the issue of war and peace, neither of them good. Kamala Harris, way worse. So all of that being said, I hope everything goes smoothly. I hope we have an answer tomorrow night. I'll be doing a live stream for the Death of Fun. I don't know who exactly. I think Tim's going to be on. We'll see if Aaron. I don't think Rob will be here. Maybe we can get Brad to chime in. We'll see. But I'll be doing a show at least for a little while. I'm not going to go late into the night, but we'll start live streaming sometime around 6 Pacific time. So it'll be a little bit before the polls close here, but we'll be getting some results from the East Coast, and we should have a decent idea of how things are going by the time I start. So anyways, check that out. And my prediction should Donald Trump win the election, I predict that Joe Biden will either step down or he will get the 25th Amendment treatment, and Kamala will be the first woman president in United States history for all of 2 months or whatever, just so that the equity and inclusivity DEI sector of America gets their historic first. Election results be damned. They're going to get their woman president, even if it's only for 2 months, through incredibly shady means. That's my prediction. That should Trump win, we'll still end up with our first woman president in the lame duck period. I could make a few more predictions, but I won't. I think that's where I'm gonna leave it with for tonight or for today. So one last look at my electoral map. I've got it 312 to 226. Donald Trump becoming the 47th president. Winning Pennsylvania, the blue wall states of Michigan and Wisconsin, and finishing up the sweep with North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. I don't know how the Senate races are going to turn out. I'm less concerned with the Senate. I suppose I think there's probably not any really good ones out there running. So I could be wrong, but we'll see. In my gut, it feels like a Republican sweep of President, House, Senate. I think the pendulum's swinging back right, and I predict chaos in the aftermath, regardless of who wins. I think there's going to be some chaos. I hope there's not violence, but I wouldn't rule it out. But for me, I've already voted. I don't gotta deal with it anymore. My part is done. My predictions have been made. And join us here tomorrow. I'll put it up on the Burnin Daylight feed as well as the Death of Fun feed. And you can find it on YouTube and Rumble. Please go subscribe to the Death of Fun. I need some subscribers over there. Going forward, I'll probably not post the Death of Fun stuff on the Burnin Daylight feed. I'm going to try to clear that up just for the cowboy content. But I know a lot of you guys have noticed that it's been mostly politics and football here lately, but you're not wrong. That is true. That being said, this has been one of the craziest 4 years that America has ever seen. And there's been so much nonsense put out there that I felt like I had to do my part to help decipher what actually is going on in this crazy world. And we're at the end of this one little blip in time. Who knows what the hell is going to happen after that? But this one chapter is finally coming to an end. So let's put it to bed tomorrow, and we'll see how it plays out. I'm hoping for a whole lot of glorious liberal meltdown memes. That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm hoping Donald Trump does a decent job should he get in. I'm not convinced of it, but I'm pretty convinced that things are going to get real shitty if we continue down with this same administration. So that's all I got for today. If you haven't voted yet, do go vote. I think it's important. I think this is legit the most important election of our lifetimes, as cliche as that sounds, I do think it's important. I do think it's part of our duty as American citizens to go make your voices heard. As little of an impact as your one single vote makes, it's still not nothing. It's close to nothing, but it's not nothing. So go do your thing. Vote for who you think is best. And if you're a white dude voting for Kamala Harris, I will judge you. I will judge you. But that doesn't, I've got no power to do anything about it. But I just know I am judging. So yeah, I'm a little nervous about how shit's gonna turn out, but like I said, I've done what I can do. I cast my vote. I hope you guys do the same, and I hope everything turns out well. God bless the United States of America. As dumb as we have become, God bless us. This is the stupidest election ever, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out. So I hope you all have a wonderful week, and tune in with us, and we'll see how the rest of the world feels about this shit. So on that note, go vote and move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Concern, whoever's taking a wheel for the next time. Don't you think we could do a little better than the way it's going down? I'll give you 4 good years just to turn it around. And if you don't, I'll take it into my own hands. And I'm gonna build my house up on Pennsylvania Avenue. Gonna raise my flag for all to see. And I'm gonna make my stand up on Pennsylvania Avenue. Mama told me I can be anything I wanna be. What about a man's word and what he used to mean? Before the radio waves and the big screen. But now you talk about hard work and a steady hand. We put our trust in you, you better stick to the plan. Or I'm gonna build my house up on Pennsylvania Avenue. Gonna raise my flag for all to see. And I'm gonna make my stand up on Pennsylvania Avenue. 'Cause Mama told me I can be anything I wanna be. And we learned about hard times and the American dream. Heard about the Dust Bowl and the war machines. And we read about generals on the battlefield. We put our trust in them to make our deals up on Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm gonna build my